Hello and welcome to the Child Psych Podcast. I'm Tanya Johnson, registered psychologist, registered play therapist, co-founder of the Institute of Child Psychology, and mama to two wonderful girls. Today we have the wonderful Dr. Aliza Pressman with us, who we're so excited to interview. She is the author of one of my favorite new books. Welcome, Dr. Aliza.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so your book, which I just devoured, 5 Principles of Parenting, is absolutely fabulous. Like it covers everything. It really does. We're going to chat about that, but it's just like, if there's like a situation you're not sure how to handle, I think that the principles cover it.
I hope so. I was trying to cover as much as possible so that parents could refer back or they could think, how would this apply in any setting?
So before I get too excited, let me do a quick introduction. Dr. Aliza Pressman is a developmental psychologist with nearly 2 decades of experience working with families and the healthcare providers who care for them. She, as I said, is the author of the New York Times bestselling book, The 5 Principles of Parenting, your essential guide to raising good humans. Aliza is the co-founding director of the Mount Sinai Parenting Center and an assistant clinical professor at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai Hospital. She's also, if you're not familiar yet, the host of the incredible podcast called Raising Good Humans. That's a lot.
Thank you.
You're busy.
My kids are getting older, so thankfully.
Dr. Aliza, your book, what's so beautiful about it is it punctures this myth of perfect parenting that we're surrounded by all of the time, and instead guides parents almost with a roadmap on how to deal with, as I said, almost any situation through your 5 principles.
Yeah, basically, I really just wanted a loose roadmap so that there was enough flexibility to have your own values, your own temperament, and your child's, and that this would just be there for you if things get a little challenging.
The perfectionism aspect, and that's what I want to focus on today, because I feel, and it's interesting, you touch on it throughout the book, I feel like this drive to be this perfect parent is so pervasive in parenting today. And I'd love to start on your experience of that and how that also shaped what you've created in terms of the book.
I'm afraid that in this really beautiful offering of like the world has just gotten bigger and we can reach more people, that there's something that's happened with parenting that's made it feel like to be a good parent is to consume as much information as possible and sort of do everything that you can, which makes total sense because we're raising these beautiful creatures and we owe them. On the other hand, it's been a disservice, I think, to both parent and child to, have this myth that if you did line up all the information and all the research we have, there's lots we don't know, but from what we do know, you couldn't even do it all if you wanted to because it's in conflict. You'd have to choose. You have to pick and choose what matters to you because some things that would be perfect for one category of values for you, let's say connection, wouldn't necessarily work if you're trying to make sure your child sleeps through the night. And so you have to make decisions all the time. And I think if we can just remind ourselves that it is so, I guess what I feel is it's appropriate, it's developmentally appropriate as a parent to want to be a perfect parent. And also it's not possible and it wouldn't do your child the service that we're hoping for it to do. So it's like giving yourself the compassion. I'm supposed to want to be perfect at this, of course. And also being perfect at this would mean making lots of mistakes and having lots of repairs. So being perfect doesn't mean the same thing in being perfect parent as it does in every other area of the world.
Dr. Aliza, as you're speaking, I almost feel like parents have been sort of educated out of what they know deeply, like those gut instincts of like, this is how I want to raise my child. This is what I know I'm not always able to do, but what I know is best for my kiddo. So it's when I'm able to keep calm, it's when I'm able to reflect back to them. But I feel like we're reading and taking in so much information all the time that we forget that deeply we do know.
I do think I hear so much people are saying like, I know I was supposed to, fill in the blank. And it breaks my heart because sometimes that sentence ends with, I know I was supposed to do something, but it didn't feel right for me. And I just think like, then don't do it. Like we're losing also that belief in ourselves a little bit. And I totally get that, which is, I felt conflicted about even writing a book because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to add more of the to-do list. I hope that I found a balance between giving information, but also lots more room for self-compassion and growth. But it's a risk because there is stuff we know. There are things that we do know about how humans develop in a healthy way that I think every parent is entitled to know. And then there's this extra stuff that is kind of like this nagging voice that doesn't need to be in our heads about, I was supposed to do it this way. Wait, but it doesn't feel consistent with my values, but I'll do it anyway because I think I'm supposed to. And I think that's where we get into trouble. Who you are and who your child is only knowable to you. And to trust that, I did hope by the end of the book that parents would feel better about themselves as parents versus when I first started working. I had a lot of parents saying, you're probably going to think I'm the worst mom, or being embarrassed if they bumped into me because when I'm in New York City, you bump into people all the time. And it broke my heart because I was like, then I'm not doing my job right. This is a me problem, not a you problem. There can't be a tone of any kind of sense that you are less than or unworthy as a parent because you're reading about how to do best for your kid and for you. That should not make anybody feel worse. And I think if it does, there's a disconnect between the values that you hold and maybe the content that you're consuming.
Beautiful. And I think about when my mom was raising me, in order to get parenting guidance, she had to actually go to the bookstore, get a book. If she was going to do that, I don't even know if people were doing that at that time. Whereas now I think that we're just so surrounded. You look at your phone and there's a million examples of the shoulds, how you should be doing this. And you kind of look at yourself and go, oh, most of the time I'm not even anywhere close to those standards.
Oh my God. I mean, my kids are able to see that so clearly because they're, one is 18, but all of them are in high school at least, or if not the one who's off to college. And I would say for them, it's funny because they're like, what they see all of the messages for parents too. And sometimes they send me funny memes and sometimes they send me my own Instagram posts. They're like, might you take your own advice? And so I think it's like very humbling, but also it keeps me in check. Like I cannot, even with all of the information that I have, I can't possibly, as you know, I'm sure you can't, no matter what you're still a person. Your day is going to be what it is based on how life is going that day. And so sometimes our responses are not what we dream that they're going to be. And there's like not enough information in the world that could change that. It's just factually, you are never going to live up to the exact high standard of this ideal response if you lived in a bubble where everything was perfect. You were never hungry or tired or overworked or feeling terrible about something or needing to also take care of a parent or having a friend who's in trouble or overwhelmed with divorce or, oh my God, there are just so many things. And so we have to parent under every context. And we have to remember that, it's just not always going to be this beautiful thing, but we get so many messages. What you mentioned when you said like, do this kind of parenting, I do think on social media, there's a lot of like, do this, not that. And it's like even that framing, I understand that it's easy to consume. So it's quick information, but it's so harmful to keep seeing that because if you keep doing the thing that everybody says you're not supposed to be doing. Now, of course, we're not talking about abuse and neglect, but just like the day-to-day stuff. I mean, that just starts to make you question yourself too much to be a confident parent who can be there to have the limits and boundaries and support for your kids that are really healthy because you're so busy berating yourself.
Which is so interesting. So in the kind of the drive for that perfect parenting, and I love in your book, I was actually just looking at them, you've got like the different types of perfectionism, like the orangutan mom, one is always, there's just these beautiful images of the different types of perfection. But in our drive for perfection, when we stop listening to ourselves, when we stop giving ourselves that self-compassion, I think that we actually create a bigger chasm with our kids. And if we just focused on how can I be present and connected and just real with this child.
I remember once talking to someone who was telling me about how they planned this perfect day with their child because she was getting her child back from, I think she had joint custody. She was getting her child back after a few days apart. She planned a beach picnic. It was beautiful. All was supposed to be wonderful. But the problem was that her son was not excited to do it. And he really wanted to explore the ants that were kind of just making a little party at the sidewalk. And she was really rushing. She wanted to get to the beach and this day she planned and the picnic and everything. And so they got into a battle and he was so upset and then he was tantruming and then they were fighting. And she was saying, then she finally stopped and she sat next to him and just looked at the ants and let him talk about these ants that he was so curious about. And they finally connected again because in this effort to have this amazing connection and perfect day, she actually forgot to connect with her child. And so I think it's true. Sometimes sitting and watching like a dumb TV show with your kid over with a bowl of popcorn is better parent-child connection than like super engaged moment with a puzzle or a picnic or, whatever it is, because that's what the moment calls for. And I think we undervalue those moments.
Mm-hmm. These highly curated moments instead giving away to like just being with them. Yeah. That's funny. As an adult now, when I think back on my parents, I can hold all the different parts of them. I can hold the messy parts of them. I can hold, the parts where like, parenting styles may have been different. I can hold the parts where I love them. That's what creates my attachment to them, who they are as human beings, not that they were this like cut out perfect parent.
I think my daughter was 9. I can't remember I think I put this in the book. I don't even remember anymore, but my daughter was around 8 or 9 and I got so upset about something, really not that big a deal, but I just had I think I was having people over and I had asked that everybody clean up if I agreed to this giant play date. I don't know. It was something not big. And I walked in and it was just like mayhem. And I kind of welled up with tears out of like stress tears. And I guess I'd never cried. And we're not talking about crying because of the death of, a human or pet or something, like that. It was like, it was frustration tears. And she was like, moms don't cry. And I was like, oh boy, did I mess this up? If the picture of me is that everything is always exactly even keeled and together, what is that message of panic and unsafety that she feels when I well up with tears of frustration, which is a perfectly reasonable thing for a frustrated person to do every once in a while. I'm not suggesting parents should let loose emotionally and have no, like we do need to check ourselves, but those normal moments of being a person, we need to know that about each other.
What a beautiful lesson to mom's human side can be human, which is raising good humans. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah, I'm allowed to have that full breadth of the human experience because so does mom, so does dad, so does my caregiver.
Exactly. Like if we're just a robot, then that would put such a question for that child. Like, why am I not always with this one feeling and always doing things so perfectly? Now, in my kids now joke around about how they get it. I'm not perfect. So like I could make a little bit more of an effort.
Dr. Aliza, as you speak about it as kind of having that full breadth of experience with our kids, one of your principles is actually repair. So, when we do have those moments when maybe there's a big freak out or we haven't slept well, like I said, we're looking after a sick parent, maybe, who knows, life is happening. I feel like that ability to repair with our kids is a fundamental part to also letting go of this ideal of perfectionism.
Yeah. I mean, repair has been around for decades. The repair research is so inextricably linked to attachment. And so, I mean, I really hope that I just gave more of a pitch for how important it is. But I would say I think it's an agreement amongst anyone in this field, that repair is such an important part of having a strong relationship, and that, you can't build muscles without small muscle tears and lifting weights and being a little uncomfortable. And if you don't do that, you will atrophy. You won't get strong. And I think relationships are the same. You have to have these tiny little discord moments or moments of discord in order to grow the strength of that relationship. And so it forces you not to be perfect, and it forces you to make repairs when things don't go the way you had hoped and reconnect, really. And I think that is, since we know in the research that it's so important for a secure attachment relationship, it stands to reason that making mistakes is super important for a secure attachment relationship.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I can just hear all of these parents just going, it's okay, it's okay. I do find with the parents that I work with, repair is for many parents one of the hardest parts of parenting.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like it's counterintuitive a little bit, because it feels like, does reconnecting with yourself and your child because I think repair sometimes sounds more like, it's just the word in the research, but it does give a false sense that something was broken. Really, we're just talking about reconnecting after having a disconnect. But for some reason, if no one repaired with you, and or you haven't repaired with yourself in those moments, or you feel that somehow it undermines the relationship dynamic, like, how will I have authority if I'm, noticing if things went south and coming back together? I think those are all the things that are working against parents for repair. So we have to just keep helping parents understand this repair stuff is no joke, and it's so important, and it just can't happen if we don't have the courage to let ourselves have these moments of disconnection, like we just do. And I really get reminded of this I would say certainly daily in little ways, but every season there's a moment where I have some interaction that I feel terrible about with my kids. And it's like I have amnesia each time. And I'm like, this time the repair is going to be too hard. And then it's like in seconds it comes back, and you just feel like, oh, right, this is where science is a beautiful thing, because it's so true and it's so actionable. But if you didn't grow up with it, I think it's really hard to do in practice. And the good news is we have so many opportunities to make mistakes and repair that we get to practice a lot now.
That's so beautiful. It's interesting when you think about adult-to-adult relationships, I think those relationships, and I love your analogy of the muscle growth there, but those relationships become stronger when we can put someone in these really vulnerable moments and go like, oh, this is not just about talking about the weather or talking about our kids' activities. This is actually a much deeper relationship. But I think we sometimes forget that with our kids too, that depth is built in their ability to see us going like, oh, I messed up and that wasn't okay. I scared you. I'm sorry. To be vulnerable with them, it's huge.
Yeah. And what a gift for them as they grow up and they aren't afraid of their own mistakes or afraid relationships are going to end because of the mistake. Now, again, we're not talking about abuse and neglect. Nobody's listening to this if they're talking about that, is my guess. But all the things that are in the normal range of the wear and tear of being a person, oh, it's such a relief to see that the people you hold dearest, your caregivers, are able to be vulnerable and make repairs. It just puts you in this position to start adulthood. That's with such a leg up.
Agreed, 100%. I think what goes hand in hand with repair, and you've already actually mentioned it in this podcast, is our ability to be self-compassionate. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that, because I think often parents go like, it's a lovely word that we can chat about, but they don't actually understand how do I do that? What is that?
Well, I think there are 2 or 3 ways that repair happens, like technically. One of the ways is to just give, is that what you mean?
So I want to hear this actually well before I'll do a little bit of editing work. I want to hear that, but then also want to hear just about what self-compassion is. It's like, how do parents practice self-compassion?
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I'll get to just the third part. So when we're thinking about repair, there's a part of repair, I would say probably the most important part is repair with ourselves. And that's where self-compassion comes in, because you cannot expect your children to buy into reconnecting and repair with you and with themselves if you can't do it with yourself. And so just like, if somebody comes to me and they're like, how do I help my child self-regulate? But of course, it's going to start with us. Do we know how to self-regulate? How do we practice that? I think with self-compassion, if you are really struggling with it, one of the things to remember is this practice is going to have a direct line to how my child treats themselves throughout their life. It's the voice they're going to hear in their head. And so even if we're privately in our heads berating ourselves and we just can't find the energy for self-compassion, I think that the secret way in is to remember that when you are self-compassionate, you are giving that skill to your kids. You're lending them that skill before it's their own. And I think just technically speaking, taking a breath and putting the hand on the heart and just, it's like when you're not feeling happy and smiling anyway, until eventually you start to feel in your body that feeling. I think self-compassion works very similarly. If you put your hand on your heart, you take a deep breath, and you remember that you're doing in that moment the best that you could for what you had available to you. And you have so many opportunities to try again in different ways, but you need to start with forgiving yourself. And then you're going to be so much more open for your child to be able to treat themselves with that kind of care. And that voice is so much less harmful than a voice that's yelling inside of your head. And I know for me, if I could guarantee that the voice inside my daughter's head was one that sounded more similar to how I would want her to make her feel, I would feel like so calm. Like if I could know that her adult self isn't going to be saying nasty things to her insides. And so that to me is like, if you struggle with self-compassion, do it for your child, because they need to have a parent who can really give themselves that grace in order for them to get that grace.
Love that. I absolutely love that. And to me, when we kind of look at this parenting journey, I think you just summarized it so beautifully. It's our ability to help our children to give themselves grace, to soften, to gentle, to be in vulnerable moments. That is really, if we can give all of the kids that gift, what a different world. What a different world.
Truly. And I think about how my daughter's going off to college in a month. And I just think like, I have all sorts of hopes for her in life. I want so much for her to feel ease in the world and good to other people and herself. And, to be able to care about what she's doing enough to do it with gusto. And I mean, so many things. But in my heart of hearts, I'm like, I pretty much won't worry if she's able to give herself and others grace. I just feel like the rest will fall into place.
The rest will fall into place. Doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
And then, of course, it is associated with better things falling into place anyway. So if you're thinking like, oh, well, we don't have time for that because we have all these other things to accomplish, I would argue this gets you there faster anyway.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Dr. Aliza, any kind of just final thoughts for parents who are listening today going, okay, I can soften a bit, I can step back a little bit?
I guess I can soften a bit, I can step back a bit is a good reminder, even just an exercise of if your child is safe emotionally and physically. So like emotionally safe doesn't mean they're feeling happy. It means that whatever they're feeling is allowed to be felt and no harm comes from having feelings. And physically safe, we know what physically safe is. And so if your child is emotionally and physically safe, as a practice taking a breath, stepping back, and letting whatever unfold a little bit more, even if a little messier, and even if it actually makes your child struggle with a little lowercase s a little bit more, because in the service of perfection, we're fixing so much for our kids. We're stepping in so much. We're not giving a little grace to everybody. And so in the most well-meaning way, which again, I just want to stress that because parents hear enough criticism, but in the most well-meaning way, we are fixing so much that it can make it feel for the child like, I guess I need that. I guess I can't get out of this small, little lowercase s struggle by myself. I guess I need somebody to step in and save the day. And so, of course, you can't grow self-compassion that way because you're not feeling capable. So that gives us freedom to step back a little, which makes us feel a little less intense, which gives us a little more ease and room to breathe.
For everybody listening in, if you want to find out more about Dr. Aliza Pressman, we'll put all of the links to the podcast, book, social media. Dr. Aliza, you have so much wisdom and so much to offer the world. I'm just so grateful to have spent this time with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a very big honor.
Thank you.